IaaS, Infrastructure as a Service, PaaS, Platform as a Service, and SaaS, Software as a Service. This is what we'll talk about in today's video. We'll take a look at the differences between them, understand the core concepts, and take a look at my favorite cloud provider, DigitalOcean, and understand with examples what are the different kind of services in each of these areas. Let's get started by taking a very simple example of pizza as a service. Before we go into the inner workings of what these different models are, let's just understand what does the word as a service means. As a service implies providing a capability or a functionality as a service, which means you don't have to do it, it's ready made for you from a consumption standpoint. So if you think about pizza offering, here's what options we have. We have traditional on-prem, which is made at home, right? Let's call that everything that we need, the dining table, the cold drink, the gas, the cheese, everything is at home. We make it at home, including the oven, the ingredients, the chicken, and so on and so forth. Now, infrastructure as a service is a step above that, right? Instead of making your own dough, your own cheese, you buy some core essential raw materials. And notice the focus on raw materials, because that's very essential to this conversation. We are getting pizza dough, tomato sauce, toppings, and cheese. We are not making this. We are getting it from outside. So that's buying the infrastructure as a service. But we still own the oven. We need to build the fire. We need to have the gas, and so on and so forth. So that takes us to platform as a service, which effectively is, you rent out an electric oven. Maybe that happens somewhere, I don't know, not in India. You get fire, and you have your own electricity also from outside. So that's platform. So basically what you have done is you're just outsourcing everything and just consuming it at your dining table and sofa. And when you really go to a outlet, right? Because in the first two models, your pizza you take and bake. In the second one, you are getting it delivered. But in the final one, you go to Domino's or Pizza Hut or wherever your pizza outlet is, and you have everything there. So that's as a service. Now if you take the same example and apply that to the software and technology stack, what do we have? We have networking, storage, servers, virtualization, operating systems, middleware, runtimes, data, and applications. Now this is the typical, and this is one of the most common diagrams that you'll see on the internet. I remember it to be very popular. I think I have myself used it on multiple number of times. So that's what is overall stack that you need to run and maintain. On-premise will obviously mean that you manage and maintain, own everything. So the cost of ownership is high. This is where you have capex services, capex cost, which is you build everything. Infrastructure as a service would imply that I outsource certain number of things. For example, the hardware part of it, the virtualization part of it, the networking part of it. But I still want to keep the flexibility to manage my own operating system, manage my own runtime, data, application, and so on and so forth. So this is the place which is typically where you have an EC2 machine. So taking an EC2 machine is an example of infrastructure as a service. We'll take a look at that with DigitalOcean Cloud Provider. Then we have platform as a service. In platform as a service, you typically don't, consume, you don't even typically take the runtimes, I would say, the middlewares, and that's also provided to you. So for example, Azure Functions, app services, these are good examples of platform as a service. So what you need to do is you need to bring your code, which is your app, and your data, and that's it. It sits on top of these runtimes and these middlewares and these application stacks. So that's platform as a service for you. Software as a service is the absolution of state where you don't maintain and build anything, you consume. So consuming cloud APIs, consuming NLP APIs, consuming AI APIs, consuming any API for that matter, which is not managed, maintained, built by you, is an example of software as a service. So in software as a service, you typically go out and look for different providers who provide you with those similar capabilities that you're solving to do. Now it's a very important conversation to have when you're building a new project as to what strategy you want to choose, because this stays for long. Whether you want to go into infrastructure as a service, get and have some understanding of infrastructure, managing, bringing EC2 machines up and down, understanding storages and stuff like that. Because even if you are outsourcing it to the cloud provider, there are chances that you're still, doing some sort of an administration work there. In platform as a service, I think that is abstracted. You don't have to worry about Linux, how many machines. You just have to say that, hey, this is the number of users I want, this is the runtime hours I want, this is probably the throughput I want, and stuff like that. So PaaS works great if you have a product idea, if you're building something and you just want to run it, right? So that's PaaS for you. You just have to worry about your application and data. It gives you great flexibility in getting started, quick to start and stuff like that. Now, software as a service is a good example, right, of where you should focus on your core. Let's say you're building a pizza ordering system, right? So you don't want to build everything out of the box, right? Which is to say that I only want people to be responsible. I only want development for order management of pizzas and delivery management of pizzas. I don't want to build a payment gateway to provide them a way to pay, right? So I'll use software as a service. I'll probably go to Razorpay or some other Stripe or something like that to get my own setup done. So that's software as a service for you. Let's move on to DigitalOcean and try and understand what services it has. So DigitalOcean is a very popular cloud provider. I think it's one of my personal favorites because it has a very limited number of services that I like, and it probably only has, I would say, IaaS and PaaS, but we'll take a look at SaaS examples after this. So apps are probably what is a best place to look at PaaS, right? This is a PaaS service. Apps is a PaaS service, which says, and as the name says, focus on code, not servers. So you can create an app. It will give you, a place to check it from there. So let's say Doc GitLab. I don't have anything selected. Let's just look at some pre-existing ones. Okay, let's just take sample. So when you take a sample one, it obviously gives you an option to select different programming languages. It can be in React, Next, Ruby, Golang, Python, PHP, Laravel framework, Vue, tons of different stuff, right? You can have an hello world, and then you go on and next and it'll deploy it. So you don't need to worry about what servers are running behind. You don't need to worry about, you probably need to know what databases are, because then you'll need connections and all that. So that's a PaaS service. Everything else minus functions, right? Functions, let's take a look at functions first. So functions are also a PaaS service. In my view, they're a serverless style. So function is also requires you to just focus on your code and the data. I don't think you need to worry about the underlying infrastructure. Most of the times it's containerized. So functions are also a good example of PaaS services. Except these two, everything else that you see is basically an infrastructure as a service. So droplets are virtual machines, volumes are disk, databases are databases, spaces are block storages, container registry, images, networking, monitoring. There's tons of different services that you can check out later. But for example, networking, right? You have domains, reserved IPs, load balancers, firewalls, PTR records and stuff like that. Now these are services, these are things which you need to worry about if you want to take care of your own infrastructure. But in this case, since we're sticking to PaaS, or for an example, we are sticking to PaaS, we don't need to. So as you can see, there's a lot of options for you to play. For example, when you go to databases, you'll get multitude of different data providers. So you can have a database cluster, and this is also I would say databases sometimes can be thought of platform as a service, because you have a worry-free database. But you can have multiple. It's kind of both. You can actually take a server, install your own database. It will be an infrastructure as a service, but databases can also be thought as PaaS. I think of them as infrastructure as a service. Maybe I'm wrong. I need to check. Choose a database engine. You can have multiple databases. For example, Redis, if you want to do caching and stuff like that. MySQL, Postgres, MongoDB. There's one of each kind. You can select the data center where you want. So I'll probably take Bangalore because I'm in Bangalore. And then you select, the basic configuration. Now it does require you for databases to kind of tell you how much size CPU and RAM it is, but that's pretty much what it is. It's not a very complex conversation to have. You don't need to maintain them. So in that sense of the word, it's more PaaS than IaaS. So yeah, that's what this conversation is all about. Great to If you have liked the video, please do subscribe to my channel. I post videos every Wednesday and Saturdays on technology. I'm trying to make a video series on architecture patterns and or alternatively LangChains. So whatever interests you more, please put in comments and I'll make the video accordingly. Thank you for watching. Do subscribe. Bye-bye.